Naktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vindishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome, everyone. We're continuing on in our focusing on the Shaktis, the 5 Shaktis of Lord Ganesha in particular, and so I'll share the screen for that purpose. And you should be seeing the Ganesha book.
Yes.
The material from last week's Zoom satsang on the 8 great Shaktis of Lord Shiva is found in our book Loving Ganesha, Chapter 3, Ganesha's 5 Powers. So I know some were wanting to look at that information more carefully, and it's all in the book. Chapter 3. Doesn't have all my graphics, though. That's the only difference. We will look at 2 new ideas from our 2019 edition of Loving Ganesha, which is all color and quite beautiful if you haven't seen it. And then review Ganesha's 5 Shaktis and go over some new material on how to experience them in the temple. Well, that's the general topics we're going to cover. And I think it's important to make a point here. There's always 2 sides to a Hindu teaching, 2 sides to the coin, so to speak. One is the concept, the idea, the philosophy. The second is actually experiencing the concept. So last time we were talking about the concept of 8 Shaktis, and then in terms of Lord Ganesha, 5 Shaktis. So we presented exactly the concept, what the first one is, the second one is, so forth. But we didn't talk that much about how to experience them. So today we're talking a little bit about what they are, just as a review, but we're focusing mostly on, well, how do we actually experience these 5 Shaktis? 2 sides. Okay. So the first of 2 new ideas may sound self-evident, but it's important. The idea of Ganesha as a real being. The idea of Ganesha as a real being is seldom found in written form, and nowhere so boldly as in Loving Ganesha. Thus, from a contemporary publishing perspective, this insight is unique to this book and Gurudeva's other writings. Gurudeva presents this idea in his introduction. In modern times in the Kali Yuga, there are a great many liberal Hindus and/or Western-influenced Hindus who don't think of Ganesha as a real being. To them, he is a symbol, superstition, a way of explaining philosophy to children and the uneducated. But this has not been my experience of our loving Lord. I have seen him with my own eye. He has come to me in various visions several times and convinced my lower mind of his reality. The living, loving reality of our benevolent God is the premise of the book that you hold in your hand. Believe it, for it is true. By the way, I think it's Gurudeva's most popular book in the United States in terms of still selling in bookstores and Amazon and so forth. Lots of people relate to Lord Ganesha, Hindu and non-Hindu, and it's a very respected book in terms of books on Ganesha. To share one instance, in 1986 I had a powerful vision of Lord Ganesha while I was in Mauritius looking to purchase property. Lord Ganesha was walking from his temple attended by 2 priests. He was about to take a bath in the beautiful Indian Ocean in the country of Mauritius, where the river meets the sea. I was standing in the water with several sharks swimming around me. Lord Ganesha, accompanied by 2 priests, looked at me and said, "Just rub some oil on their noses and they will not harm you." Daring approach. Second is the idea that the worship of Lord Ganesha helps us experience the higher chakras. An important function of Lord Ganesha relates to the chakras within man. Metaphysically, chakras are any of the nerve plexus or centers of force and consciousness located within the inner bodies of man. In the physical body, there are corresponding nerve plexus, ganglia, and glands. So the chakras aren't in the physical body. You can't find them there. They're in the inner bodies. The 7 principal chakras can be seen psychically as colorful, multi-petaled wheels or lotuses. They are situated along the spinal cord from the base to the cranial chamber. Additionally, 7 chakras, barely visible, exist below the spine. They are seats of instinctive consciousness. They constitute the lower or hellish world, called Naraka or Patala. Thus, there are 14 major chakras in all. Our great god Ganesha sits contentedly upon the Muladhara chakra, which is the first of the principal chakras and is located at the base of the spine. This chakra controls the forces of memory within every creature. Worship of him strengthens your memory, builds character, and brings knowledge from the within. It also protects you from the lower forces which reside in the chakras below the Muladhara. These darker chakras govern fear, anger, jealousy, and the confused thinking centered around self-preservation. Men and women of wisdom will work diligently to close off these lower chakras and the negative karmas they can unleash. By worship of Lord Ganesha, seated upon the Muladhara chakra, you can slowly seal off these lower states of mind and keep awareness lifted above the animal instincts. This is a point that I bring up regularly when we talk about the chakras. Most teachers talk about the higher chakras, Saraswara chakra, Ajna chakra, and the wonderful experiences we can have there, and they even focus on stimulating the Kundalini so we can have those experiences. Gurudeva starts in a different way. He says, well, let's not be concerned about those. Let's just not go below the Muladhara chakra. So it's not an exciting topic. It's not a way to fill a hall with people attending a seminar. Let's not go into lower consciousness, but it's needed. In other words, we need to close off what's below the Muladhara. And we talked about that a little bit last time, in that if you stimulate the higher chakras, there's a certain extra intensity of energy. And if you're not stable at the Muladhara, it can throw you down into anger. So your anger can be doubly or triply as powerful as it was before, and you're going to really upset things. So we need to not allow the force of the higher chakras to throw us into the lower ones with that intensity. Another point on the Muladhara is the chakra below it is fear. And I remember talking to parents over the years about their younger children being fearful, particularly at night. And the point I made was, well, don't worry about it. They'll grow out of it when they go to school. So why is that? Well, because you memorize when you're in school. First few years, all you do is memorize. And that stabilizes the awareness in the Muladhara chakra. So naturally, children go out of fear just because of that. Even for adults, if someone is going through a period of being extremely fearful, which is easy to do these days, you can memorize things. Challenge yourself to memorize something new, and that'll pull you up in consciousness. As Gurudeva stated, it is none other than Lord Ganesha and his mighty band of Ganas who gently help souls out of the Naraka abyss and adjust them. into higher consciousness after due penance has been paid, guiding them on the path, guiding them on the right path toward dharmic destiny. So those are the two new ideas. And then we have a review of the 5 Shaktis of Lord Ganesha, his 5 powerful positive powers. Particularly if anyone missed last time, it's important to know what they are. Gurudeva offers a profound insight into Lord Ganesha that describes him as having 5 powers. He explains. Come, now let us turn our hearts and minds to the 5 powers of Lord Ganesha. Devotees have asked for elucidation of the 5 profound ways this great God functions in helping us from the inner worlds. For many Hindus in both the East and the West, it is this understanding of the 5 powerful positive powers, or Shaktis, of Lord Ganesha and their 5 powerful asuric counterforces that makes religion a working part of the devotee's life and a stabilizing force within the extended family, which embraces kindred, friends, community elders, and close business associates. This knowledge and practical experience has helped them understand just how intimately Lord Ganesha works with each of us every day in even our mundane life. The first Shakti, yellow in color, emanates the feeling of love and compassion that the good person naturally has for his or her immediate family. Love and harmony within the nuclear or joint family is most important to all Hindus, and the beautiful feeling when it exists is the first Shakti of the Lord. The second Shakti, sapphire blue in color, is the same feeling but extended to relatives, neighbors, and friends, all who are part of the extended family. This is more difficult to hold as inharmonious conditions often arise. These are called asuric forces, which come between people, causing misunderstandings and upsets. Through prayers and through worship, the first Shakti can be extended beyond the circumference of the immediate family to include acquaintances, relatives, and friends. The third Shakti, ruby red in color. It doesn't look like ruby red, does it? Guess I have one slide off here. Let's wait for the slides to catch up. The third Shakti, ruby red in color, is the same love extended to all persons one has dealings with in the external world, business associates, casual merchant, and the public at large. It is honest and harmonious relationships in conducting the business of trade and dealings in goods, finance, and the distribution of the wealth of the world. The fourth Shakti, emerald green in color, brings through the creative, intuitive mind the love of culture and all that it brings, religious formalities, and the respect and appreciation of discipline. Here we find the vibration of religion, which brings us as a boon creativity in music, art, drama, and the dance. It is through the fourth Shakti that religious practices are performed consistently. The fifth Shakti, orange in color, extends into the wonderful feelings obtained by the outpourings of love of this God. This gives the added boon of being able to be charitable for those who love God, perform charity, build shrines and temples, and participate in the overflowing generosity of their abundance, earning the good dharma, the merit accrued for this life and passed on to the next. And Gurudeva's concluding paragraph talks about tuning into the 5 Shaktis. To bring religion into one's life requires the worship of Lord Ganesha and the daily tuning into these 5 great Shaktis. This worship brings harmony to our home, to our relatives and friends, and to business associates. It brings culture, creativity, and religion into our life. All this is crowned by such a heartfelt love of God that we can give forth. We are allowed to perform charities and in overflowing abundance, prepare the religious edifices for the next generation. This is what our daily pujas and meditation, our pilgrimages, and other religious practices serve to manifest in our lives. So, of course, the easiest place to learn to feel the 5 Shaktis is in the temple. Once you are really good at feeling them there, then you can feel them anywhere. Next, we have a new idea about puja as the exchange of prana. So we have to know what the word prana means, otherwise it's a little vague. So prana, in this sense, just means energy. All kinds of energy, not just one specific type of energy. So we could also say puja is the exchange of various energies. We'll explain that in the next few slides. An aspect of puja in the temple that is not widely understood is how it relates to the flow of prana. Except for the times arati is being offered, puja is a process of giving prana to the deity. This is done through the offering of cut fruit, cooked food, water, fragrant flowers, and milk. Then, during the culminating arati, the deity and his helpers or devas reflect back this prana into the aura of each devotee, purifying it of subconscious congestions. The devotee so blessed leaves feeling uplifted and relieved of mental burdens. After an elaborate homa performed in our Hawaii temple by his three priests, Chandrapuri Mahaswamiji of Kailas Ashram in Bangalore, India, explained that Agni, the messenger god of fire, conveys the offerings in a purified form to the deity, who then uses the prana to bless those present. So it's not the prana the way it goes into the fire, it's a refined form of that prana. Gurudeva provides even more insights into this process. When you worship the god in the temple through puja and ceremony, you are bringing that divinity out of the microcosm and into this macrocosm. You supply the energy through your worship and your devotion, through your thought forms and even your physical aura. The pujari purifies and magnetizes the stone image for this to take place. The gods and the devas are also magnetizing the stone image with their energy. And finally, the moment is ready and they can come out of the microcosm into this macrocosm and bless the people. You observe that they stayed for only an instant, but to them it was a longer time. The time sense in the inner worlds is different. In other words, they're moving faster than we are. So here's my summary. The power of the puja depends upon 4 factors. The nature of the temple, is it powerful or not? In other words, a temple builds up power over the years if puja is conducted there without interruption. Some temples in India, even though they're ancient, the puja was interrupted, the temple was even destroyed and rebuilt, etc. So there's some power that remains even if you destroy a temple, but it's much easier for power to build if the temple remains and it just has pujas decade after decade, century after century. So in general, the older a temple is with uninterrupted pujas, the more powerful it could be if the pujas are being done in the proper way. Two, the auspiciousness of the day. So auspiciousness of the day, the easiest way of looking at it is the annual festivals. So the best day to worship Ganesha of the whole year is his annual festivals, such as Vinayaka Chaturthi. Murugan, we have Skanda Shashti coming up. So that's a ideal time. It's not better than the other Murugan festivals, but any of his festivals are the ideal days of the year in terms of auspiciousness. Auspiciousness also relates to the astrology of the day, and you can see that in our Panchangam. It describes the day. Bhuloka day, Devaloka day, Shiva Loka day, Shubha Shiva Loka day, Shubha Shubha Shiva Loka day is the terms used to describe the day in our Panchangam. And this is a series of terms developed by Gurudeva. The most auspicious day is the Shubha Shubha Shiva Loka day, and I happen to notice this coming full moon, there's 3 of them in a row, Shubha Shubha Shiva Loka Day. And in other words, the retreat at the monastery is 3 days long, and all of them are Shubha Shubha Shiva Loka Day, so it's a great day to spend extra time in the temple. How do we understand this idea? We can draw a comparison to clouds in the sky. Trying to see the sun, say at 8 or 9 in the morning, the sun's up slightly in the sky, it should be visible, but if you have clouds, it's only partially visible. If we have lots of clouds, and it even feels a little bit dark, that's like a Bhuloka day. Connections to the inner world are not that strong. And you take away some of the clouds, you get to a Devaloka day. Take away even more of the clouds, there's just a few left, you're a Shiva Loka day, then a few more taken away, Shubha Shiva Loka day, and then when there's no clouds in the sky, it's like a Shubha Shubha Shiva Loka day. You're able to see the sun without any effort, which means communications to the inner worlds are much clearer, much easier. It's easier for them to say something to you. It's easier for them to hear you say something to them. Improve communications. Then the third point is what the pujari does, both devotion-wise and chant-wise. In other words, the skill of the chant is important, and the presence of devotion also is important. So when those are both at a high level, then the pujari is contributing quite a lot to the process. Fourth one is the devotees supply energy through their worship and their devotion, through their thought forms and even their physical aura. Singing bhajan is an important way this occurs. So in the monastery, we have a unique opportunity to study this out, because we do pujas at times of the day when no one's in the temple except the pujari. For example, the 3 a.m. puja, no one attends it. And there's a certain energy present. And you notice right away, if you're doing the 3 a.m. puja, that you can't generate the power of puja you could if you had, say, 20 devotees in the temple singing their hearts out. The presence of devotees is a very important factor in the experience. And of course, it's just not bodies. Sometimes we get tourists in the temple here. That doesn't count. It has to be someone in a devotional state of mind, really wanting to get blessed by the deity, and then that contributes to the strength of the puja. So those are the 4 factors. Okay, then we get a story. Stories are still the best part. As I mentioned, in a medium-length puja, blessings come at the final arati. The rest of the puja, the energy is going into the deity. And then at the final arati, the deity is using all of that prana that the deity received and sending it back as blessings. In a more elaborate puja, there's also a ceremony when the curtain opens. Multiple lamps are passed, and that's called alankara ceremony. And that can be a very strong point as well. In fact, for some reason, in our Ardra Puja, particularly the one that's done at Tiruvambavai time, we have a monthly Abhishekam to Nataraja on the monthly Ardra Nakshatra, and then it corresponds with Tiruvambavai, or Rudra Darshanam, another name for it, in December, January. So in that one particularly, the Alankara moment tends to be stronger than the final Arati, for some reason. I'll talk about that in a second, but here's the story. 2 families. First one's from Texas. They simply said that the Alankara was the strongest one they'd ever felt in any temple anywhere. So that's quite a compliment. They're familiar with temples in India, and for them to say that shows the power that comes through on that day, Arudra Darshanam day is very, very strong. And even though our temple's only been here since 1973, which is 47 years, it has a lot of power for a couple of reasons. One is the monks do pujas every 3 hours, and the other is Gurudeva lived here. So it gained in power more quickly than a normal temple would. Second story is a man came on his 60th birthday, met with me afterwards and said Shiva spoke to him when the curtain opened, told him to come back in a year. Said a few other things which I don't recall. Then he came back in a year and Shiva spoke to him again. So he has a certain connection with the Nataraja that people generally feel something, but they don't actually have words come into their head from the deity. And part of the reason the Alankara is a powerful moment is you're seeing the deity fully dressed, which is what Alankara means, ornaments. And when there's a huge number of flowers and beautiful gems and everything, it really impresses the mind. And you say, oh, that's beautiful. And that, oh, opens you up. So you're more open at that moment than at other moments. So therefore you're more able to receive. Then we have a exercise. It comes from a series of classes. We're not trying to do the exercise this morning, but I thought I'd just read it to you. Sit after puja for 5 minutes with the murti in view. Absorb the blessings, energies emanating from the murti for 5 minutes. Be like a sponge soaking up water. So the sponge soaking up water is an important idea. In other words, in the kitchen, sponges are used frequently to clean up liquid messes. But if the previous liquid mess is in the sponge and you want to clean up a new one, it won't pick up anything because it's already full. So we have to squeeze it. We have to make the sponge empty, and then it's able to absorb the new liquid. So the same with our mind. If we're sitting in the temple, but the mind is somewhere else, if it's concerned about personal problems, what's for dinner, whatever, it's not able to absorb the Shakti as much as it would if it was totally empty. So empty doesn't mean passive. It means intently alert, but without any self-generated content. Okay, moving on, we've got one more area here. Ten practical suggestions to help devotees obtain maximum blessings from visits to the temple. To best feel and be benefited by the Shakti of the deity. In other words, we're taking the time to go to the temple, and why not get the most blessings out of it, most benefit out of it? So these are suggestions on how to get the most out of a temple visit. First suggestion, attend a puja at the temple at least once a week. This allows us to experience the blessings of God and the gods on a regular basis and helps keep us pure as well as strong in our religious commitments. Second suggestion, have special traditional Hindu clothing that you only wear to the temple. Simply wearing this elegant attire helps put you in a religious mood. Of course, the children should also have their own traditional outfits for the temple. And the place that sets the highest standard for children's dress, of course, is Bali. Exquisite dress for both boys and girls. It's worn in Bali by all the kids when they go to the temple. Third suggestion, make your travel to the temple a religious time. Don't allow yourself to focus on problems at home, work, or school. Don't think or talk about politics or business. So this is assuming a situation like in North America where you're driving to the temple. It's the most normal way to go, so you have opportunity to talk to those in the car or opportunity to turn on some religious music or even a discourse and listen to that on the way to the temple to get you in a religious mood. The idea is, if you're in a religious mood when you arrive, you have a head start on benefiting from the temple. You're already in the right mood. Or suggestion, bring an offering. Ideally, bring a garland or even a single flower or fresh fruit for each shrine at which you are going to worship. Up behind here. Each act of giving opens you to the blessings of the deity. When we give first, we increase our receptivity. Therefore, never visit the temple empty-handed. Fifth suggestion, put as much time and prana into the offering as possible. Prana is the energy that exudes from your hands. In this case, prana just means energy, but this is talking about making a garland. So it's just the energy that's coming out of your hands. Buying a garland at the store is good, but making it with your own hands is even better. When the garland charged with your prana is placed on the deity, it is as if you had touched the deity. This creates a closeness. It is as if you had walked into the sanctum and given the deity a hug, which of course no one is allowed to do. Sixth suggestion, during the puja, keep focused on the murti and the priest chanting. Pay attention, don't let the mind wander. When singing bhajans, keep focused on the meaning of the words. Even if you don't know the meaning of every word, it is good to have a general idea of what the priest is chanting and what the bhajan means. Oh, this is an area that gets criticism, particularly from younger Hindus. We can't understand the puja because it's in Sanskrit, therefore it's boring. Well, true, but there's only 16 steps in the puja, and you can learn what they are. If the priest is offering incense or offering the flame, you can know what he's doing. So just knowing what the priest is doing without knowing of each word, knowing the meaning of each word is enough to hold attention. Seventh suggestion, after the puja, don't rush away. Rather sit, stay, meditate a while and bask in the Shakti, the blessings radiating out through the murti to the devotees. So of course that can only be done if the temple is conducive to it. In some way there's a quiet corner you can sit in or some type of place that's appropriate. If one of your spiritual disciplines is to perform japa, this is also an ideal time for your mantra chanting. Eighth suggestion, you can bring some of the religious atmosphere of the temple home with you by simply lighting an oil lamp in your shrine room when you return home from the temple. This sacred act brings devas who are at the temple right into the home shrine room, where from the inner world they can bless all family members and strengthen the religious force field of the home. This is one of my guru's special insights into the mysticism of temple worship. So of course they'll only stick around if the home is harmonious. Lots of disharmony in the home, they'll depart. Ninth suggestion, the Shakti of the deity is stronger on some days than others. Attending the temple on the strong days is helpful in attuning oneself to the Shakti. For example, there is a stronger Shakti on yearly festival days such as Ganesha Chaturthi for Lord Ganesha. These days are determined by the ancient science of astrology, maximized for their spiritual energies. And number 10 and last, taking a vrata, a vow for a festival, is helpful in intensifying your worship. Typical vrata is to fast during the day, attend the temple festival ceremonies in the evening, and only afterwards have a meal. So that completes our presentation for this morning, which, as I mentioned, is more focused on the experience side. Last time we described in detail the 8 Shaktis and the first 5 abysses. Now this time we're focusing on, well, how do we actually experience the 5 Shaktis? Because we don't want to experience the abyss. that happens through argument. Thank you very much. And Isan, if you haven't mentioned it already, please mention the time difference, I think, which starts for our next Zoom satsang. Oh.